Hey everybody, welcome back to For Heaven's Sake. This is day 22, I think. Is that right?
Yes.
22 of the Advent series, and today we are talking about King Herod. King Herod was born in 73 BC into a politically unstable world and family. He was born of mixed heritage, which made him an outsider to the Jewish elite. He gained favor with Rome at age 25 when he was appointed the governor of Galilee. His first act suppressed bandits from the region, and Rome loved that. The Jews hated that. He aligned himself. We talked about this a little bit earlier in the Caesar Augustus episode. He aligned himself with Mark Antony. He loved Mark Antony. Mark Antony and him were allies along with Caesar Augustus. Rome really liked what King Herod had going for him, and the Jews did not like him. The last thing Herod ever would want to do would be to fulfill prophecy, but we're fixing to go into how he made prophecy come into fulfillment against his will, because it doesn't matter who you are, how powerful you are, your motives are true or not, or good or not. God will bring about his will and order, especially when the sake of humanity is on the line. And that's what we see happen. We talked about God's sovereignty several times over and over in this series, and how God will use anybody and anything in any situation to get the promises of God given to the world. And that's what we see. Herod was a very, very insecure man, and he was a very insecure leader. However, he was not that bad at a lot of things. He was actually called Herod the Great because he was a great builder. He accomplished a lot in his time, but he was paranoid. He led by unimaginable cruelty. He had many of his family members executed, including his wife, his mother-in-law, and several of his sons. When there were talks of a savior entering the picture, especially when the term King of the Jews started getting thrown around, he got really in his feelings, very insecure and very upset, and he just wanted an end to that. And so him feeling all these feelings in his insecurity and with all of his issues, he decided to put his foot down and call in the Magi. And so he has this talking to with the Magi, and he's like, I want to worship him. I want to worship him too. Which was not true. That was never an intention of Herod, was to worship the king. That was a manipulation tactic. And God called him out on that. He ends up calling him out on that when he tells the Magi, don't go back to Herod. But he sends the Magi out to find the baby, to come back with a report to him saying, this is where the King of the Jews is, so that he could go and worship him, air quotes, worship him. So when the wise men get to Jesus, and they are in awe of our Redeemer, they are met by God and told, do not go back to Herod. And they don't go back to Herod. In fact, when they travel, they go around where he is to stay away from him. They don't want to have another encounter with Herod. When Herod realizes that they're not coming back with a report, he pitches a huge fit, and he does something just horrendous. He puts out what is known today as the massacre of the innocents, and that is when he orders his soldiers to go out and mass kill all the boys in Bethlehem under the age of 2. First of all, I cannot imagine being a soldier to Herod. I can't imagine wanting to do that. But he does, and I'm going to just go ahead and point out that I think the surface and the obvious takeaway from this story is God's protection over his son, but also over his children. And how evil schemes cannot, like this reminds me of no weapon formed against me can prosper. No weapon formed against Jesus in this story prospered. This was a powerful man who had a throne, who had soldiers, who had armies, who was on Rome's side, who was very powerful, who had economy and all of these things that there should be no reason that this man couldn't find a baby to kill him, but he couldn't because God powerfully protected Jesus. And the same God that was on Jesus' side is on our side when we're in his will and order. And I'm going to end in telling you a little bit about his death because it's atrocious. Do you know it? You know anything about it? So he dies even more paranoid than like he starts out. He just gets more and more paranoid with age. And people say he died, that it's recorded that he died of maggot-filled organs.
Ew.
And that he really suffered.
Ew.
I know. But on his deathbed, he ordered that all of the leaders in that area be arrested and sentenced to execution on the day of his death because he wanted the world to mourn on the day of his death, even if it wasn't for him.
That's weird.
So he knew nobody would be sad, that the world was going to breathe a sigh of relief. So he holds captive all the leaders and says, I'm going to have them killed after I'm dead. But what happens instead is they release them and everybody celebrates. Like a really, really crazy man that ended up having no power when it comes against God's plan. And Herod's violence could not mess up God's plan for redemption, and that's what I have written down and highlighted as the major takeaway. His plan and his violence could not stop what God had going, and it highlights another story of God's sovereignty and how human schemes cannot stop God's will. And I'm going to highlight one more time that he wanted nothing less than to not have prophecy fulfilled. But every single act walking in more and more cruelty, more and more paranoia led to more and more fulfillment. There was nothing he could do to come against the creator of the universe. Absolutely. And his plan and his that's all I have for this episode. Do you have anything to add to that? Isn't he wild?
Yeah, and the fact that the Bible calls him deeply disturbed.
Deeply disturbed.
And then he continued to be, like, scared of a baby.
A baby.
Like, Jesus was not
just because they called him
King of the Jews.
Yeah. And so he married a queen. I think it's
because, like, he wanted this power, like wanted to be this like almighty. Yeah. And like in that power trip was willing to kill all the children in Bethlehem.
But the sad thing is, like, me looking at Herod's life is like, again, he was not that bad at what he did do. He was pretty talented. He was a great builder. What would have satisfied him? He was a king. Yeah. He was a governor at 25. What was going to satisfy him? Yeah. He wanted to be king of the world. He wanted to be a Caesar Augustus, probably. Yeah. He wanted to be a Julius Caesar, he wanted to be, but he was paranoid and crazy. So.
Got him where he was, maggot-filled.
Maggot-filled death. That's not how I want to go.
Yeah, me neither.
Jesus, please pick another way.
Thank you guys for joining us on this episode of
For Heaven's Sake. We will see you tomorrow.
See ya.
Bye.